If you enjoyed the video and find it useful for you to fall asleep to, help by subscribing. Thanks.
Reddit confession. I never meant to ruin his engagement. But I couldn't stop. I never thought I'd be the type of woman to get caught up in something so messy. I was always the keep your nose clean type. A 30-year-old copy editor living in a quiet suburb, still drinking oat milk lattes every morning and watching true crime documentaries alone on my sectional. My longest relationship had ended 2 years ago when I caught my then boyfriend texting his co-worker about what he wanted to do to her after drinks. Since then, I've been floating, swiping, deleting dating apps, reinstalling them again during wine nights. But this started with a damn couch. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when I saw it, this sleek, curved velvet piece that screamed mid-century sex appeal in deep forest green. It was being sold on Facebook Marketplace by someone local, and I had to have it. I messaged the seller. 20 minutes later, I was in my car, driving to an address just 20 minutes away. That's when I met Daniel. The door opened, and there he was, tall, dark-haired, wearing joggers and a worn Yale hoodie, sleeves pushed up over forearms that made me forget how to breathe. "Hey," he said with a crooked smile, holding the door wider. "You must be Olivia." God, even the way he said my name stirred something low in my stomach. The couch was in the living room. He helped me lift it, muscles straining under his shirt, his body brushing mine every few seconds. We had small talk at first, weather, traffic, design tastes. Then we both laughed at the same offhanded joke I made about people who buy things just to resell them. His laugh was deep and contagious. "You want a coffee before you go?" he asked casually. I should have said no. I had editing to finish, a deadline looming. But I nodded. He made espresso, the old-fashioned kind, with a copper mocha pot that hissed and steamed. His place was too perfect for a single man. Candles on the table, framed photographs of coastal towns, a stack of kinfolk magazines I knew he didn't subscribe to. "This your place?" I asked as I sipped. He hesitated. "Then, technically it's mine and my fiancé's." That one word. Fiancé. I smiled politely, told myself it didn't matter. That I'd just finish the coffee, take the couch, and leave with a mental image of him to replay later under the covers. But then it started raining harder. Like, torrential. He looked outside, rubbed the back of his neck. "Shit, your car's not covered. That couch's gonna get soaked," he said. I stood there, coffee in hand, heartbeat in ears. "You can wait it out here if you want," he said. "Should pass soon." And so I stayed. Sitting across from him on the very couch I just bought, talking about books, movies, music. He was charming. Disarming. But there was this edge to him, like he knew how to read the room too well. Or maybe just how to read me. At one point, his eyes lingered too long on mine. My knee brushed his. I don't know if I leaned in or if he did. All I know is I suddenly wasn't thinking about the couch, the rain, or his fiancée. I was thinking about how warm his lips looked. "Daniel," I whispered. He blinked. "Yeah." And then I kissed him. It wasn't supposed to happen again. I told myself it was the rain. The mood. A one-off mistake fueled by unmet needs and sexual frustration. But 2 days later, he messaged me. "Daniel, hope the couch still looks good in your place. Can't stop thinking about how soft your lips were." My thumb hovered over the screen for minutes. "Me, you shouldn't be texting me." "Daniel, I know." Pause. "Daniel, come over again. One last time." I didn't reply. But I showered, shaved, put on a black dress I hadn't worn in over a year, and drove to his place without saying a word to anyone. The second time was not like the first. It wasn't clumsy or hesitant. It was hot, urgent, like two people making up for years of denied hunger. I barely got through the door before he pinned me against the wall, his mouth claiming mine, his hands tugging up my dress. "I've thought about this every night," he murmured into my neck. "Every time she talks about wedding colors, I see you." I knew it was wrong. But the way he said it made it feel like a goddamn novel, like I was the forbidden chapter he kept reading over and over. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The couch, my couch now, was where he laid me down, unzipped my dress, and took his time like he was worshipping something sacred. The way he whispered my name as I arched under him still echoes in my head. Weeks passed. We made excuses. Met at a motel once. He brought takeout and said he felt more alive around me than he had in months. But there were cracks. Guilt. Once, he got a call from her while I was still in his bed. He answered it, pretending he was at the gym. I listened silently, sheets wrapped around me, stomach twisting. I asked, "Why are you marrying her?" He didn't lie. "Because it's easier. We've been together for years. Our parents love each other. It's a whole machine now." And then he looked at me like he was trying to memorize my face. But I've never wanted someone like this before. It wasn't sustainable. I knew it. Then one night, he told me she'd be away that weekend, visiting her sister. "I want to cook for you," he said. That Saturday, I wore red lipstick, thigh highs. He opened the door with a bottle of wine and a stupid grin that made my chest ache. He made pasta from scratch, lit candles, played some old soul record I didn't recognize. It felt like a date, like we were real. After dinner, we slow danced in his living room, my head against his chest, his hands trailing down my back. His voice was low, rough. "If I met you first." He didn't finish the sentence. We ended up in bed. Hours passed. Clothes discarded. His mouth explored every inch of me, like he was trying to commit it all to memory. Afterward, we lay tangled together, hearts still racing. And that's when we heard the key turn. The sound of the key turning in the front door was so casual, so final, that for a moment my brain refused to process it. I just stared at Daniel, heart thudding, hoping it was a mistake, maybe a neighbor, maybe the wind, maybe. "Daniel," a woman's voice called. Everything inside me turned to ice. Daniel bolted upright, scrambling for his boxers, adrenaline flushing the color from his face. "Shit," he hissed, half to himself, half to the universe. I froze under the sheets, barely able to breathe, my limbs stiff with panic. I heard the soft clack of heels on tile as she walked in. His fiancée. She was home. She was here. "I thought you said you were going to the gym," she said from the foyer. He didn't answer right away. His mouth opened, but no words came. I whispered, "I need to go." "There's no time," he whispered back, eyes wide with dread. "She's already in the house." "I can't be here," I started, but then her voice rang out again, this time closer. "Daniel." She appeared in the hallway doorway a second later. Tall, beautiful, perfectly put together in a soft beige trench coat and sleek black heels. A bouquet of white lilies in her hand. She stopped cold. Then her eyes shifted. First to Daniel, shirtless and frantic. Then to me, under the sheets, red lipstick smudged across my cheek, my black dress and panties thrown carelessly on the floor. The flowers hit the ground with a soft thud. No one said anything for a few unbearable seconds. Then she laughed, a sound with no joy in it at all. "Wow," she said, her voice sharp. "This is how I find out." "Emily," Daniel started, stepping toward her. She held up a hand. "Don't. Just don't." I wanted to melt into the bed and disappear. I wanted to cry, run, scream, anything but lie there like a ghost caught haunting the wrong house. You told me you were tired of sex, Emily said, her voice cracking. You said the stress of the wedding was just too much. And all this time, it was just that I wasn't her. She looked at me like I was poison. Did you even know he was engaged? She spat. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She turned back to Daniel. And here I was worried you'd get cold feet. Turns out you just couldn't keep your dick in your pants. I didn't plan this, Daniel said, stepping closer. I swear to God, Em. It just happened. You didn't plan it. Her voice rose. You made dinner. You lit candles. You played our fucking song. She laughed again, this time bitterly. I started gathering my clothes, trembling as I pulled my dress over my head and clutched my heels to my chest. I'm sorry, I mumbled, finally finding words. I didn't mean for this to happen. Emily looked at me again, eyes shining with restrained rage. Get out. I obeyed. Slipped past her like a shadow, not daring to make eye contact. My heart was hammering as I stumbled out the front door, nearly tripping over the lilies on my way out. Outside, the air was cool, sharp. I barely made it to my car before the sobs started. I drove without thinking. Just miles of empty roads, headlights flickering across wet asphalt, my mind spiraling. I didn't even know where I was going until I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner. I sat there, motionless, my hands gripping the wheel, breath fogging the window. It was over. Whatever it was. It had imploded right in front of me. And yet, I missed him already. My phone buzzed. I stared at the screen, half hoping, half dreading. Daniel. I didn't want her to find out like that. I'm sorry. Then another message. Daniel, but I'm not sorry it happened. I didn't reply. 4 days, I tried to forget. I buried myself in work, turned off notifications, avoided everything that reminded me of him. But at night, I'd catch myself tracing the outline of his texts in my head, remembering the way his hands felt, the way he whispered my name like it was something sacred. Then one night, he showed up. I was in my apartment, wearing nothing but an oversized tee, when there was a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and nearly dropped the mug in my hand. He looked wrecked. Unshaven. Eyes bloodshot. He held a bottle of red wine in one hand, the other stuffed in his coat pocket. I shouldn't be here, he said when I opened the door. No, you shouldn't, I replied. He took a step forward anyway. I left her, he said. I blinked. What? I left Emily. I moved out. It's done. Why? You know why. I crossed my arms. That's not good enough. He stepped inside, brushing past me with the familiarity of someone who knew the smell of my sheets. I haven't been able to sleep, he said, setting the wine on my counter. I haven't stopped thinking about you. About us. There is no us, I snapped, trying to sound firm. But then he turned to face me. And his voice dropped. There could be. I stood frozen, staring at him, feeling every nerve in my body tighten like strings being pulled too tight. You ruined your engagement for this. I whispered. I didn't ruin it, he said, stepping closer. It was already dead. You just reminded me what it felt like to want someone again. His hand cupped my cheek, tentative, waiting for me to pull away. I didn't. I'm scared, I admitted. He nodded. Me too. Then he kissed me. Not with hunger this time, but with something quieter. Like longing. Like regret. Like hope, even if it was a long shot. The kiss deepened slowly, like we were trying to mimize each other again. My hands tangled in his hair, his lips traced the curve of my jaw, down my neck. He pulled me against him like he couldn't bear to let go. We didn't speak again that night. The couch remained empty. The bed, however, didn't. I thought it would be easier after that. But real life doesn't care about how good the sex is, or how right someone feels in your arms. Emily's friends found my Instagram. I got DMS full of bile and venom. Someone sent a photo of me and Daniel kissing at the motel, anonymously, with the word whore in the subject line. Daniel tried to shield me. Told me to block them. Said he'd handle it. But I could see the stress eating away at him. You still love her, I said one morning, watching him get dressed, his back to me. No, he said, buttoning his shirt. But I hate what I did to her. I nodded. You're not a bad person. Just, maybe not a good one right now. He sat beside me, running his hand through my hair. Then helped me become one. I didn't have an answer. I was already in too deep. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to swim up. It's strange how quickly something forbidden can start to feel normal. Like waking up in Daniel's arms. At first it was fire and tension and guilt. Now it was just mornings. He'd bring me coffee before I even asked. He started leaving his toothbrush next to mine. One day he brought over a houseplant, said it reminded him of me, low maintenance, but beautiful when you paid attention. It was corny, but I kept it on my windowsill anyway. We still didn't have a label. He didn't say girlfriend. I didn't ask him to. But when he held me in the middle of the night, whispered my name like it was a prayer, I let myself believe it was real. Until the cracks started showing. It was subtle at first. The way he flinched when his phone buzzed. The way he stared at it a little too long before flipping it over. The nights he stayed a little too quiet. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd say work stress, or trouble sleeping. But one night, he was in the shower, and his phone lit up on my coffee table. A name I recognized. Emily. I didn't open it. I couldn't. But my chest tightened in a way that felt all too familiar, like the beginning of something unraveling. When he came out, towel around his waist, I asked calmly, "Are you still talking to her?" He froze. Then, slowly, he nodded. Sometimes. Just tying up loose ends. Loose ends don't text at midnight. He looked guilty. Ran a hand through his hair. She's not trying to get back together. She still has stuff at my place. Family stuff. It's messy. So is this, I said quietly. He sat beside me, dripping slightly on the rug. I don't want her. I'm here, aren't I? But are you here for me, or because you burned every bridge on the way out? His expression tightened. I regretted the words as soon as they left my mouth. I left everything for you, he said. Don't turn that into a weapon. We didn't speak much the rest of the night. He slept facing the wall. In the morning, he left early, claiming an urgent meeting. I watched him go, stomach churning. And yet, that night, I still waited for him. A week passed. We were fine, but not the same. Sex was still hot. Still breathless. Still made me feel like the only woman in the world when he was inside me. But between the sheets, I could feel something slipping. One night, after wine and too much silence, I curled up beside him and whispered, "Do you regret it?" He looked at me, eyes heavy. No. But I regret hurting her. That hurt more than I expected. Do you still love her? I don't know. He saw my face change. Reached for me, voice soft. But I know I don't want to lose you. You can't have us both, Daniel. I know. And yet, something about his tone made me feel like he hadn't fully accepted that. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. We were out, our first dinner date in public. It was a quiet bistro tucked behind a bookstore, candlelight casting soft shadows on his jawline. For a moment, it felt normal. Like we were a couple. Like there hadn't been a betrayal, a scandal, a fiancé discarded like a second act costume. But then I saw her. Emily. She was across the street, standing near a florist, talking to a friend. She didn't see us, thank God. But I saw the way Daniel's posture changed the second he noticed her. He went rigid, eyes glued to her. He didn't even realize he'd stopped talking. Daniel, I said quietly. Look at me. He tore his gaze away, forced a smile. Sorry. But it was too late. I couldn't unsee it. And I couldn't ignore the nagging voice in my head screaming, you'll never be the original. You'll always be the woman he cheated with. That night, back at my apartment, I confronted him. I can't keep pretending this is sustainable, I said, arms crossed. He looked exhausted. You want me to walk away? After everything? No. I want you to decide. Fully. Because I don't want to be someone's rebound. I don't want to be your hiding place. He stared at me, and for a long moment, I thought he was going to say something reassuring. That I meant everything. That she was gone from his heart. But he just said, I need time. That was the moment I knew. Time meant maybe. Maybe meant no. I swallowed hard and nodded. Then take all the time you need. Somewhere else. He didn't argue. Just stood there, silent. Then he left. And this time, I didn't cry. A week passed. Then 2. I didn't hear from him. I deleted his number. Blocked Emily's bitter friends. Started going to yoga. Read a book cover to cover without checking my phone. It wasn't easy. I missed him. Craved him. Not just his body, but the way he looked at me like I was a secret he wanted to keep forever. But I also remembered the silence. The way he paused when her name came up. The way he didn't chase me. Then one night, 3 weeks later, there was a letter in my mailbox. No return address. It was his handwriting. I unfolded the page, heart racing. It was short. Liv? You asked me to decide. I did. I choose you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just a chance. D. I stared at it, rereading every word until the ink blurred. And I had no idea what to feel. I sat on the edge of my bed, Daniel's letter in my lap, my thumb brushing the edge of the page again and again like it might unlock some hidden meaning. I choose you. 3 words. So simple. So loaded. So painfully late. The worst part. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to rush to his apartment, throw my arms around him, and fall back into the mess of lust and comfort and chaos that had consumed us both. But I also wanted to burn the letter. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, imagining every version of how this story could end. Him knocking on my door in the rain. Me slamming it in his face. Or opening it. Pulling him inside. Letting the madness start again. I hated him for making me feel like this. But I hated how much I still wanted him even more. By sunrise, my resolve was shattered. I threw on a hoodie, no makeup, messy bun, no plan. Just keys, phone, and Daniel's letter stuffed in my back pocket. He was still living in that temporary rental, the sad little condo near the marina that reeked of takeout and regret. When I knocked, he opened the door instantly. as if he'd been waiting. His eyes widened when he saw me. Liv? I pushed past him, heart pounding. He turned and followed. I read your letter. I meant every word. I faced him. Then prove it. His brows lifted. How? I stepped closer. No more hiding. No more half-truths. I want everything. Or I want nothing. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay. Then his hands were in my hair. And my mouth was on his. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The tension had built for too long, too many nights of unsaid words and withheld touches. We slammed into each other like it was the first time all over again, his hands everywhere, mine pulling at his shirt, desperate to feel skin. He backed me into the couch, lifting me with one arm like I weighed nothing. I straddled him, breath hitching as I ground against the bulge in his jeans. I missed this, he growled against my throat. You missed me, I corrected. He bit down lightly on my collarbone. That too. My hands were clumsy, trembling as I unbuckled his belt. He yanked off my hoodie, my bare skin shivering in the morning air. His fingers slid between my thighs, teasing, circling, driving me insane. Still wet for me, he murmured, his voice thick with hunger. Always. I didn't respond, I couldn't. Not with the way he was touching me, coaxing moans from deep in my throat. My nails dug into his shoulders as I rocked against his fingers. He growled, lifting me again, carrying me toward the bedroom with a strength that never stopped surprising me. I need to be inside you, he said, like it hurt to even wait. Then stop talking, I whispered. He obeyed. We collapsed together, hours later, bodies tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, heartbeats sinking again like they always did. He traced circles on my stomach. I don't want to lose this again. You almost did. I know. Then tell me something real. He shifted, propped up on one elbow. I thought Emily was the safe choice. She was stability. Predictability. But with you. What? He smiled. With you, I feel like I'm living. Even when it's a mess. I rolled my eyes. That's not exactly romantic. It is to me. I smirked. You're a disaster. I know. But I'm your disaster now, if you'll have me. And I did. Of course, things didn't magically fix themselves overnight. There were fights. Tension. Old wounds that reopened. He had to face the fallout from his broken engagement, mutual friends turned against him, family members who disapproved, whispers at work. We had to rebuild trust, both ways. I had to know I wasn't just the newer, shinier option. He had to know I wasn't going to bolt the second things got hard. But the sex. That was never a problem. If anything, the emotional rawness just made it hotter. We'd fuck in the kitchen, over half-prepped dinners. In his office, during lunch breaks. In the shower, in the car, on the floor of my apartment, after an argument so loud the neighbors probably called the cops. He'd pin my wrists above my head, and whisper all the filthy things he'd dreamed of doing to me. I'd ride him slowly, making him beg for release until he was trembling beneath me. We were reckless. Addicted. Obsessed. But it wasn't just lust anymore. Somehow, somewhere between the chaos and the craving, we fell in love. Messy, complicated, unforgivable love. And we both knew, this story might not end in white dresses, or neat little vows. But it was ours. And we'd burn down the world before we gave it up. The first time I saw her was at a party Daniel dragged me to. I knew Emily and Daniel's social circles overlapped, but I hadn't met her yet. Or maybe I'd heard her name whispered behind closed doors. The kind of whispers that make your skin crawl and your heart race all at once. She was a vision, tall, with that same icy elegance Daniel once loved. Her smile was effortless, but her eyes cut sharper than knives. When she spotted us, her gaze didn't waver. She walked over like she owned the room, confidence radiating off her like heat. "Daniel," she said, voice sweet but venomous underneath. "I didn't expect to see you so cozy." He tensed beside me, but I kept my face calm. "Emily," he replied cautiously. "This is Liv." She turned to me, eyes narrowing. "I've heard a lot about you." I forced a smile. "I'm sure none of it's true." She laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Oh, honey. I'm afraid it's all true. And then some." Daniel grabbed my hand under the table later, squeezing tight. "Ignore her." "I'm trying," I whispered back. But Emily was relentless, texting, showing up uninvited, sending Daniel pictures of their old memories, taunting us with the life they had together. One night, Daniel came home late, haunted. She left something on my doorstep. It was a photo album, filled with pictures of Emily and Daniel, happier times. Wedding planning, vacations, lazy Sundays. I flipped through it, feeling like an intruder in a world I never belonged to. "Why are you letting her do this?" I asked, voice shaking. "Because part of me still feels responsible," he said. "And because I don't want to hurt her more." I looked up, furious. "And what about me? What about us?" He swallowed. "I'm trying. God, I'm trying." But every time I saw those texts, those messages, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Was I just a placeholder? A cruel experiment? A temporary fix? One night, I confronted him again. "If you don't choose, really choose, I'm walking away." He looked at me like he might cry. "You don't mean that." "I do." We kissed then, desperate, hungry, but underneath the lust was a fracture that kept growing. I wanted to be his everything. But was I just the beginning of the end? Days blurred into nights. I was caught in a storm of desire and doubt. Daniel was everywhere, his scent lingering on my clothes, his voice echoing in my mind, but so was Emily, a ghost hovering between us. One evening, after a fight that left my skin raw and my heart pounding, Daniel showed up at my door. His eyes were wild, desperate. "I can't do this," he confessed, voice breaking. "I'm losing myself." I pulled him inside, wrapping my arms around him. "Then don't lose yourself in her. Lose yourself in me." His hands trembled as he traced my face. "I want to. I really do." We tumbled onto the bed, the world outside disappearing. Every touch was a plea, every kiss a promise. But even as we melted into each other, I felt the ache, the fear, that this burning fire could still be extinguished. Afterwards, he held me close and whispered, "I'm yours." I wanted to believe him with every fiber of my being. But sometimes, love isn't enough. Days folded into each other like pages stuck in a rain-soaked book. Daniel was everywhere, his scent clung to my clothes, his voice haunted my quiet moments. But so was Emily, an invisible shadow stretching between us, whispering doubt into the cracks we desperately tried to cover. The tension wasn't just in stolen glances or unanswered texts anymore. It was in every breath, every word, every touch that was supposed to heal but instead opened fresh wounds. One evening, after a fight that shattered the thin glass of our fragile peace, Daniel showed up at my door unannounced. His eyes were wild, desperate, like a man drowning and clutching at straws. I opened the door, breath hitching at the storm in his gaze. "Daniel." My voice was soft, wary. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with a heavy click. "I can't do this," he said, voice breaking as if carrying a burden too heavy for his broad shoulders. I'm losing myself. I stepped forward, reaching out, my fingers trembling as they brushed against his cheek. Then don't lose yourself in her. Lose yourself in me. His hands trembled as they cupped my face, pulling me closer. I want to. I really do. We stumbled backward, crashing onto my bed in a tangle of limbs and whispered confessions. Every touch was a plea for forgiveness, every kiss, a promise to try harder. His hands roamed like he was memorizing me, the curve of my waist, the dip of my collarbone, the pulse beneath my skin. I clung to him, my nails digging into his back, as if holding on tighter would stop him from slipping away. I'm yours, he whispered into my hair after we collapsed, sweat slick and breathless. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the ache was still there, a silent scream beneath the heat. Later that night, tangled in sheets, I caught his phone buzzing. Emily's name. His thumb hovered over the screen, hesitation clear in his jaws tight clench. Do you love her? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer. That silence was louder than any confession. Weeks passed with this unbearable tension. Daniel was present but distant, a ghost in our shared space. The nights were filled with reckless passion, trying to drown out the creeping doubt. But the days, cold and sharp as broken glass. One afternoon, I found a message on his laptop. Emily's voicemail, open and unanswered. My hands shook as I dialed her number. It rang 3 times before a voice, calm and cold, answered. Emily. She laughed softly. I was wondering when you'd call. I swallowed hard. Why won't you leave him alone? Because he's mine, she said simply. Always has been. No. He's with me. Temporary, she said with a sneer. You're just the girl he's hiding behind until he figures out where he really belongs. That cut deeper than I expected. I'm not playing games, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Neither am I, she replied. Watch your back, Liv. Click. I stared at the dead phone, heart racing. Emily wasn't just a ghost. She was a storm about to break. That night, Daniel came home late. I was waiting, fingers clenched around the letter he'd sent weeks ago, the one promising he chose me. I'm done, he said, voice low. I ended it. Huh? Yes. Tears threatened to spill. Relief mixed with exhaustion. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared. Scared you'd leave before I could fix this. I shook my head, voice trembling. You don't get to ask that. Not anymore. He stepped closer, desperate. Please, Liv. Give me a chance. I looked into his eyes, the same ones that had held 1,000 secrets, and finally said, this time, you prove it. Over the next months, we fought like wildfire, passionate and dangerous, sometimes scorching, sometimes cleansing. But slowly, trust grew like new shoots after a forest fire. We celebrated small victories. No hidden texts, no whispered lies, just honesty, raw and sometimes painful. Sex became our rebellion against the past, fiery, desperate, a declaration that we still belonged to each other. One night, as we lay entwined, Daniel traced my fingers and whispered, you saved me. I smiled, heart full. No. You saved me. Because in that chaos of lust and heartbreak, I found something real. And sometimes, that's all that matters. Months later, I sat alone in our apartment, sunlight filtering through the curtains, casting soft shadows across the room. The storm had passed, or at least, we'd learned how to weather it together. Daniel came in, carrying 2 cups of coffee, his eyes warm and steady. He sat beside me, fingers lacing with mine naturally, like we'd done it 1,000 times before. We are not perfect, he said quietly. We are still messy, still complicated. I smiled, resting my head on his shoulder. But we are ours. He kissed my temple. And I choose you, every day. For the first time, those words didn't feel fragile or desperate. They felt true. Our past, the lust, the pain, the battles, wasn't erased. It was part of the fire that forged us, raw and fierce. As I looked up at him, I knew this wasn't just a story of lust or obsession. It was the story of two broken people daring to love anyway. And maybe that was enough. Years later, I still remember the chaos, the lust, the fights, the nights that blurred into mornings. Daniel and I weren't perfect. We never pretended to be. But we learned to hold each other through the storms. We built something fierce from the ashes, a love that was messy, raw, and real. Sometimes passion still ignites between us like wildfire, reminding me how far we came. And every time he looks at me, I see the man who chose me, despite everything. That choice became our forever. No matter what, I'll never regret the fire we burned.